gift to all of you is my channel May Round Joy. Today, I'm going to explain Blue Lock Season 3.
And with that, he looks back right at Kaiser, and Isagi's eyes are burning while he tells Kaiser to kneel to him and calls him a shitty clown. Kaiser's eyes begin to melt by that, but we then see Noah from the sidelines, who is looking at this extremely closely and says that this is it, Kaiser, and that it's finally time for him to fight with his ego. Isagi begins to run away, but Kaiser is still down on the ground and is beginning to lose it as he says that evolution only happens in adversity while looking like he is about to kill someone soon, probably Isagi, if I'm honest. The commentators say that the ball is evenly matched, however, the one dominating the aerial battle is none other than Kunigami Rensuke. Kunigami heads the ball right over Shido's head and gives it to Corona. After that, we get to Isagi, who, while running, says that he can crush him and even destroy him now. He's determined that he can take that step further and devour the Emperor, as the team is almost all his, and Kaiser is thrown off balance. As we know due to his latest miss and his awful play against Isagi and Rin, Isagi thinks back to when he told Kaiser to kneel before him and even called him a clown. He says that if he hurls such abuse at Kaiser now, he won't be able to escape his obsession with Isagi, which will then in turn make his movements predictable, and if Isagi is able to take advantage of that and aim for the back with Corona and Hiroi, he can then win with 100% certainty. After that, we get this amazing panel with Kaiser still on the floor while Isagi is running far ahead of him into what looks like an explosion or a black hole. As he is running, he asks Kaiser if he doesn't want to devour him, and that Kaiser always thinks of himself as the main character. After that, we switch sides as we instead go over to Kaiser, who says that he recognizes this feeling he is getting from Isagi. He thinks that every day his father used to put Kaiser through that, all that same sense of irrationality and suffocating constraint. However, after that, Kaiser finally gets up on his feet and says fuck it, saying that he has already surpassed his father a long time ago. However, because of Isagi, Kaiser's very existence is shaking again, and if he doesn't win and doesn't surpass him, then everything that Kaiser has worked so hard for will just disappear. Suddenly, Ness comes out of nowhere and screams Kaiser's name and tells him to calm down. He says that they have already achieved enough results and that Kaiser has already scored so many goals up until the previous match. Not to mention that Kaiser already has his offer from Real Madrid, and because of that, Ness advises him not to make any reckless plays and instead wait for a chance where he can fire off his new weapon. Kaiser looks back with some sort of scared but also dissuaded facial expression as Ness with big eyes says that he is here for Kaiser. However, Kaiser couldn't care less about that if he asked if Ness was out of his mind and said that if he lost now, then everything would disappear. Ness's happy facial expression quickly turns to a sad one as Kaiser says that the whole world is watching this match and that a defeat here isn't just a simple loss, but that the offer from the Real Madrid and his throne in this team, all the glory he's gained through football, will be crushed by Isagi in an instant, saying that if he loses now, then he will return to the time when he wasn't even considered human. Just then, he sees his chances and tries to slide tackle Isagi to get the ball back. However, Isagi avoids it easily. Kaiser quickly starts to wonder if he is afraid of losing, and if the reality of the current him and returning to the worthless thing he was before might scare him. Kaiser's life wasn't even born out of desire. Isagi is still above him, but now he's got a menacing and intense aura around him, as it looks like Isagi is almost looking down at Kaiser. While this is still going on, Kaiser says that having gained status, honor, and money made him feel like he had become a human desired by others. But now suddenly, he is afraid of losing what he's paid for, calling it the pitfall of an achiever's heart. Kaiser's eyes start to twitch as he looks at Isagi in front of him. Ness tries to help him and screams his name, but Kaiser is too far gone and can't hear him. Kaiser starts to get up and thinks that he's now fighting to take, but before he knows it, he has started fighting to protect himself by only choosing easy opponents that he could win against. He did that to be able to settle in places where he could remain king without getting hurt and living indefinitely without injury, saying that there's nothing wrong with that as he fought for that position and that there was no need to do anything after that, which could potentially shake the proof of his existence. But even then, the place that Kaiser is currently in doesn't have the best view in the world yet. He says that as he sees Noah standing beside Isagi in front of a throne, they are looking down at Kaiser's petty little throne, which he has been sitting comfortably on. Kaiser finally realizes it and says that fighting to protect his current glory won't allow him to prove his existence any further. He finally gives in by saying that he has no choice but to slowly close his eyes. However, it seems like that was just to throw us off, as we can see his arm down on the grass as it begins to evaporate into flower leaves. As that is going on, he says that he has to throw it all away, the glory, the title, and even his own pride. Everything that made him feel like he had become human, he has to now strip it all away in order to reset totally and become zero. Kaiser is now covered in total darkness as he thinks about this sensation and if this is something that he truly wants. And he starts to ask himself about the dignity that he truly desires, thinking that it isn't a life that he desired, but what he has found and wanted is his own ego, or his own zero as he calls it. We get back to when he was looking at his football for the first time, and it made his eyes glow up. After that, we see when he is sad and sleeps with the ball close to his heart. Behind it, we can see his hand, and in the next panel, he completely destroyed that picture. He's looking more furious than ever, as he says "you shitheads" and is ready to go at it again, and it even makes Isagi turn around in shock. And then we see Isagi, who still has his eyes looking at Kaiser. He has a bit of a shocked facial expression as he says that Kaiser's movements changed all of a sudden, and then we see Kaiser, who is looking insane as he's hunting for Isagi. Suddenly, Corona, who is next to Isagi, tells him to speed it up. He tells Isagi to keep on attacking and for them to combo. Isagi is on board with the plan, but suddenly someone says, "Right now," and a hand comes across Isagi's face. It's Karasu who manages to get his hand around Isagi's body, making it harder for him to move. Karasu tells Isagi that right now he is the game's protagonist. He continues and says that if they let Isagi get in range, then he will hit them with his crazy shot again. But Karasu is here to stop that from happening, as he is set on crushing Isagi before he gets that chance. However, Isagi is so cold, so he doesn't even care for Karasu, as he tells him that he would like to see him try and calls him a baby crow, which goes so incredibly hard. Isagi thinks that he saw PXG shifting all of their defensive focus towards him from a mile away. Even though Karasu has him on lockdown, he still manages to get off a pass to Corona, or Planet as he calls him. Corona gets the ball and starts to just say ad-libs for no reason, which I think was quite funny. He says interlock connect as he passes the ball away. It looks like the ball is heading for Isagi, but he jumps over it in the last second and lets the ball continue its path. After that, Isagi tells Hiyori to show him the best production that he can come up with. The ball is going closer to Hiyori, and his facial expression totally changes as he's ecstatic that he gets to play with both Corona and Isagi, who both have such great ideas. However, just as the ball is supposed to meet up with Hiyori, something unexpected happens, as instead of Hiyori getting the ball, Kaiser comes in his way, blocks off the pass, and grabs it himself. Kaiser now has the ball and is looking cooler than ever, and he also has flower leaves flowing behind him. Isagi is watching from afar and is frustrated. Isagi says that, as he suspected, Kaiser changed his attaching patterns, and instead of being overly fixated on Isagi and forcibly pressing him, he's instead scanning the entire field and predicting their combination attacks, calling it a calm meta-press. After that, we see Raichi, who's super pissed that Kaiser once again stole the ball from his teammate, but then we have Ness over here, who's praising Kaiser over and over again and telling him to try again. We see Kaiser looking over and then passing the ball. However, the pass isn't to Ness this time, but surprisingly to Raichi, who's just as shocked as we are. After that, Kaiser starts sprinting on the pitch all that he can. While Raichi is confused and wonders what the hell it is that Kaiser is planning, we also see Ness, who honestly looks crushed that Kaiser didn't pass to him. It definitely destroyed his heart. But Kaiser says that if he's going to climb even higher, then he has to discard everything that defines who he currently is. He needs to get rid of all of it to then reset himself to when he was a simple nobody, and to the time when all he wanted was to live, back to when he was just zero. After that, we see Kaiser, who tells Reichi to please pass him. Reichi puts a smug face on himself as he passes. Reichi says that it looks like Kaiser has some redeeming qualities after all, and screams at him to score with his assist. Igarashi on the bench wonders why the hell Reichi is passing Kaiser, but personally, I don't think you get a say if you're not even good enough to play in the game. After that, we get into Isagi's brain as he thinks that now that he's currently the game's protagonist, their best option is to attack through Kaiser since he doesn't need Isagi to score, which annoys him. But after that, we see that he gets all fired up as he looks really menacing, and says that he can't believe that Kaiser would actually throw away his pride, still calling him a shitty clown. But suddenly, another one enters the picture, and it's Rin who comes and tells Kaiser that he was too forceful, telling him that it's over as he gracefully steals the ball from Kaiser, who falls to the ground. Reichi is furious and asks Kaiser how he dares to waste his beautiful assist and screams at him to get up and get back on it. Kaiser takes his around his mouth and says that it's getting interesting. explaining that this isn't some simple impulsive train of thought, but that this only occurs to those greedy enough to achieve even further success. He calls it the turning point of one's identity, while simultaneously being destroyed and rebuilt. He says that while chasing after Rin. However, he continues and says that he shouldn't waste his energy playing defensively, and instead keep searching for ways that will spur him to greater heights, admitting that the reason that he is able to get into this mindset is because of Isagi and the hardship that he gave Kaiser. After that, we see that Raichi and Corona teamed up to take the ball from Rin. Karasu is watching from the sidelines, wondering what is going on, saying that on top of Shiodu getting shut down and Isagi suddenly evolving exponentially, even Kaiser's beginning to move unpredictably, and ending it by saying that he can't manage to get a read on the team. After that, we get into Hiyori's brain as he thinks that a formation where Isagi operates as the main striker and his two-gun volley forms the base of their attacks, while simultaneously allowing Kaiser the freedom to score goals by himself as the second striker. Hiyori gets big eyes as he calls it awesome, continuing by saying that now that Kaiser isn't solely passing to Ness, their opponents are having a more challenging time tracking his movements. On top of that, with Isagi's two-gun volley and Kaiser's Kaiser impact, they have two different nuclear weapons that they can destroy them with, saying that the destruction those two create individually is finally starting to resonate with each other. After that, we get this amazing panel with Isagi and Kaiser being almost side by side, and Isagi getting the ball from a pass by Corona. After that, we can see everyone's reaction to this, and Noah has a stone face as always. However, the text says that despite all the expectations and chaos, only one was calm, quiet, and yet still fired up. It's none other than the mysterious player Kiora Jin, who's patiently waiting for his moment to strike as he's starting to define the borderline moment to mark his impact on the game. We then see his eyes, which are looking more determined than ever. After that, we see the most mysterious player in Blue Lock, Kiora Jin. However, that's not all as we finally get an insight into his life. The text says that Kiora Jin is always destined to stand at the boundary line. The first boundary was when Kiora was in his mother's womb. His mother suffered a serious illness and was told by the doctors that her survival rate after giving birth was 50%. However, despite knowing that Kiora was able to draw the change of life and was born into this world strongly, after that, we fast forward a bit, and we get to know that Kiora has two siblings. He got caught between a short-tempered older brother and a rowdy younger brother, and because of that, the Kiora household was constantly embroiled in siblings' quarrels. But even then, as small as a child, Kiora thought about which side, or rather which brother would be more advantageous for him, thinking that whichever side he allies himself with will win, and that his presence determines the victor, which was Kiora's own way of fighting and way of life. And even in Blue Lock, this nature bears its fangs as Kiora survives the boundaries of battle and finds his way to this point. But right now, his destiny comes around again. It's his first and last opportunity to participate. He looks at both Isagi and Kaiser and wonders which side he should take to survive. This wasn't an easy decision either, as this choice would be dead or life for him. After that, we leave him and get to both Kaiser and Isagi, who's going crazy on the pitch. Isagi is fully locked in, and as he's running, he thinks that the field is completely revolving around him. He says that all of the movements of his allies are centered on Isagi, and even the enemy's vigilance is at its max. However, it isn't just Isagi who's using that to his advantage, as Kaiser is starting to aim for the goal on his own, and has now abandoned the cooperation with Ness he had been using until now. And the most shocking part was that he even was ready to pass to Blue Lock members for the sake of his own goal. Isagi thinks that it's a wise decision to ride on the changed Kaiser for his evaluation like Raichi did, and because of that, Isagi is a bit afraid as he says that the Emperor is trying to invade his stronghold using that psychology. He clenches his teeth and says, not bad, but still determined to absolutely crush him. Because Isagi knows that if he scores, then Kaiser's evaluation will plummet. He looks over at Kaiser and tells him to do it, and to see if Kaiser's awakening or Isagi's monarchy will win this game. After that, Isagi passes the ball over to our favorite Shark Boy, who traps it flawlessly. However, Tokimitsu comes in his way right away. He tries to block off Kurona and says that he won't let him and Isagi do that combo again. Kurona tells him to get out of the way and tries to get free, calling him the meatball boss for some weird reason. However, Kurona will face more trouble, as it isn't just Tokimitsu who has his eyes set on stopping Kurona. Nanase also comes and joins the party. He takes advantage of the fact that Tokimitsu is holding down Kurona to come and sweep away the ball, calling it an opportunistic press. We can clearly see that Kurona got mad at this, while Tokimitsu is mad that Nanase came in and took away his credit. Now that Nanase has the ball, he wants to get out of there right away, but as he turns around, he sees that Kaiser is approaching in full force against him. Nanase freezes for a second, and Kaiser uses that to steal the ball from him. Isagi, who watched from the sidelines, finally understands what is going on. He says that Kaiser isn't directly targeting him, but instead aiming at the flaws in others through Isagi. It really shouldn't be this confusing in a football series, but we move on. Isagi thinks that if what he thinks is true, then Kaiser's next target will be Kunigami. And Isagi turns out to be spot on. As Kaiser asks Kunigami, or Orange as he calls, Kunigami doesn't really understand what is going on, but he sees that he's getting a pass towards himself. He's anything but happy because of this, but still passes the ball back to Kaiser. After that, Isagi calls it clever, as he thinks that Kunigami can't move freely now because he's broken with Shidu. And by using that, Kaiser is forcing a post-play 1-2 with Kunigami. Accurately understanding the situation of this team, and using that to manipulate of other players' psychology, Kaiser is willing to abandon everything and change for the sake of his own results. Isagi thinks that Kaiser for sure is like him, and that he is a world-type egoist instead of a self-type egoist. Suddenly in the game, as Kaiser is running with the ball, he gets into some trouble as both Karasu and Rin go to stop him. Rin even says that he is going to kill him. All three of them collide with each other, and the ball goes up into the sky and falls into the hands of the ultra-sadist himself, Hiyori. He traps it and says to Kaiser that his luck has descended. Right after getting the ball, Hiyori wants to give it away, so he passes toward Isagi and tells him to resonate. The ball goes to Isagi, but in the last second, he decides to step away from it, which shocks everyone. However, it wasn't for nothing, as the ball instead rolled over to Corona, who, alongside Isagi and Hiyori, created the ultimate triangle. After Corona has gotten the ball, he passes it over to Isagi to finally finish it off. Isagi looks at the ball, which is slowly approaching, and thinks that he's won as he's going to score his second goal, but that's not really the case as Charles instead comes in his way and stops the ball from ever reaching Isagi. Charles says that it's the imp's super arrival. He looks into Isagi's eyes and asks if he's surprised or even annoyed. We can definitely see that Isagi is annoyed after that, as he wonders if Charles wasn't super unmotivated just a minute ago, and wonders what happened. The ball goes high up into the sky, but it lands in the hands of a bastard Munchin player. That player is none other than Ness, who tells Kaiser that it isn't over yet, as Ness is here and by his side. Ness's eyes are beginning to fire up as he follows the ball closely and is ready to fire off an amazing pass. Kaiser, Isagi, and Kiora, all three of them, look over to Ness and wonder what is going to happen next. The ball is approaching Ness, and everyone has their eyes on him. Ness thinks back to Kaiser's training and his new weapon. He knows that he has to pass to Kaiser in a position where he can shoot. He says it over and over again to really get it into his brain. After that, he thinks that assisting Kaiser's new weapon is his role and no one else's, and after that, he fires off his pass toward Kaiser. The pass goes past both Nanas and Karasu, who are unable to stop it. Kaiser's eyes are glowing like never before as he sees the ball coming closer to him. But he says, "You mutt," which basically means dog. The ball is almost right by Kaiser, but as he looks ahead of himself, he sees a ton of players, and because of that, he thinks that he doesn't have a single chance to shoot it right there. So he instead lets the ball continue to roll, ignoring Ness's amazing pass. Ness sees this and is in total shock, as he can't understand what happened and why Kaiser decided to ignore the pass. After that, we see both Isagi and Kaiser, who, in sync, look behind them and watch who the ball falls to. And look at that, the ball falls to the most mysterious player on the pitch, which is of course Kiora Jin, who, I must say, traps it flawlessly. Just look at that trap, it looks so cool. Anyway, as Kiora gets the ball, he says that he's got it. After that, we see Hiyori, who's a bit shocked that Kiora has the ball. Charles is just annoyed and a bit tired of this game, I think. However, Reichi is super hyped over this. However, after that, we see Isagi, who has his pieces flying all over the place, as an unexpected ball holder has now come into play, and he must adapt it to his puzzle. He sees that because of this, the enemy formation is in chaos due to the continuous attacks, and thinks that this is the moment to go for it. He steps on the ground determined, and we can see that he's absolutely locking in right now, as his eyes have turned into total darkness, while his piece can't keep up with his thinking. As he continues to run, he thinks that he needs to call for the pass from Kiora. Kaiser sees this and is determined not to let this happen, and he is looking to steal the pass himself, as it's his survival instinct. So instead of running up on the field, he runs back towards Kiora. When he arrives, he makes a turn around him, letting him know that he's there, which we can see confuses Kiora a bit, as he doesn't know what to do. Anyway, now that Kaiser is in Kiora's vision, he starts running up on the field again, and says that the element he needs is his constraint energy, which only he can breathe in. He then admits that he is a piece of shit and that he will keep throwing himself into constraint as many times as it takes until death. Tokimitsu is approaching Kiora at a rapid speed, which makes it even more stressful for Kiora as he will soon have to send out his pass. As Kaiser continues on his path, he says that the field is the greatest thing in the world and that he must emerge from its absurd reality, and he can only do that by breaking through the crowd in front of him. He has to dive right into his dense constraint by breaking free and charge towards his constraint, which is exactly what he does, as we can see him getting through the PXG players with ease. We see him sneaking in between Nanas and Karasu like they were just out of thin air. But it isn't only Kaiser who is trying to break free, as Isagi has the same idea, and knows that to get the pass, he has to be in the perfect spot, so he gets past one of the PXG players and runs as fast as he possibly can. Both Isagi and Kaiser are running at full speed and are awaiting the pass. They look absolutely furious as they tell Kiora to pass the ball and to choose them. After that, Kiora finally spots the perfect spot to pass, and we can see how fired up he looks. Just look at him, even his hair changed color. But anyway, Tokimitsu tries his best to block the pass, but it's too late as Kiora has found the boundary line as he calls it, and passes the ball. However, something unexpected happens as the ball goes past Kaiser and sees that the ball is going toward Isagi, and he can't do anything but just watch. Isagi, on the other hand, is pleased as he says that it's coming. A high-speed ground trajectory that surpasses Kaiser. He knows that with this pass, he will finally beat Kaiser for good and take over the bastard Munchin team, which will lead to Kaiser ultimately falling into darkness. But suddenly he comes back to reality as he notices something weird with the ball, as out of nowhere it stops going forward and instead goes backward. Isagi can't believe his eyes as he understands that the ball had a backspin to it and sees how the ball slowly goes back towards Kaiser. Kaiser manages to break free from Karasu's defense and is rushing towards the ball. Kiora, who can't take his eyes away, tells Kaiser to get it and to score. Kaiser is honestly looking demonic as he has some sort of aura coming off his face as he says that he did it. He stole it from Isagi. But the twists and turns aren't done just yet, as Kaiser will face more trouble as both Charles and Rin are going at full speed toward the ball. Charles says to Rin that if he's feeling down, then here's a thorny rose, even calling him brother, which I know Rin isn't liking as he has enough brother issues as it is. Rin tells Charles that he won't let him take it and that he will stop him, just reminding you guys that these guys are on the same team. But whatever, even though Kaiser is facing major trouble with both Charles and Rin, he realizes something as he sees that the ball has stopped exactly how it was in practice and knows that this is the perfect chance for him to score as everything is aligned. He gets close to the ball and says that the last thing that will come down to is luck. After that, we can see him loading up an insane shot as he is looking absolutely crazy, and he even has the luck puzzle piece beside him like Isagi had in the U20 game. Anyway, Kaiser gets ready to fire his shot, but sadly we don't see any more of that right now as this is where it ends. Anyway, the next panel is crazy because we see Kaiser making contact with the ball and getting ready to fire off a hell of a shot. And if that wasn't cool enough, then his face is determined so that it almost looks scary. In the next panel, he finally fires off the long-awaited shot, his Kaiser Impact Magnus. Both Rin and Charles didn't see this coming, as they probably expect just his normal insane Kaiser impact, so they had no way of stopping this ball. In the chapter before, I was scared that Isagi was going to take the ball when Kaiser finally shot it. However, with the angle that the ball is in now, it's extremely unlikely for that to happen. By the way, just a side note, but I'm amazed at how the mangaka constantly comes up with new ways to make the manga look absolutely stunning. Just look at the target circle where Kaiser shot the ball. I don't think we have ever seen anything like this, but it should definitely come back because it looks so cool. The ball is going right by Isagi's head. Raichi is angry as he wonders what it is that Kaiser is doing, as this once again looks like a failed shot. Tokumitsu as well can't really understand how Kaiser would make another miss kick. However, as Isagi is closely analyzing it, he sees that this one is different. He says that since the ball stopped for a split second, he cleanly struck the ball the way he wanted to. He looks at the ball and sees that wind is beginning to emerge around it, and he says that the amount of spin he generated on the ball, he managed to even make the air his ally, which just sounds so incredibly cool, making the literal air come on his side. And once again, this panel is out of this world, and I can see that the break last week was definitely necessary because this is just wild. After that, we see Ness, who is intensely looking at the ball. He tells it to just bend already, as he knows that if Kaiser misses another shot, then it's probably bye-bye for him. But just then, as Ness told it to bend, it actually bended, going around Isagi perfectly. After that, we see some sort of hologram or silhouette of Kaiser from when he was younger, as he tells the ball to go. After that, we get into a short flashback, and we see Kaiser attempting some kick-ups, but ending up failing, and this makes him extremely mad and kicks the ball into the wall, which funny enough ends up landing right back in his face and making him fall to the floor. This only makes the young Kaiser more furious, as he instead just kicks away the ball and starts to leave. However, there's no way that he could just turn his back on his precious football, so he quickly runs back to it. He finds it and looks at it with sad eyes before he lays on the grass and takes the ball close to his chest. After that, he goes home and we get into another extremely tragic panel as we see his father literally stomping on Kaiser, who is lying helplessly on the floor. He looks back up and we can see that his eyes are just filled with eternal sadness, as this is his regular day-to-day. However, as he is getting stomped on, he looks at his precious football. After that, when the night comes around and his father has probably gotten tired of stomping Kaiser, Kaiser takes his ball and holds it close to his heart. He calls the ball a piece of trash and says that someday they will get out of this shithole and finally become free. And as soon as they are free, they will then earn a lot of money, eat tons of good food, and finally after all of these hard years become human for the first time ever. But why stop there, as he says that if they are super lucky, then they will also become loved. Kaiser has bruises all over his body as he takes his hand towards the sky and says that he wants to be loved. After that, we leave him and go back into the match where we see Kaiser's outstanding shot, which is growing closer and closer to the goal. The goalkeeper tries his best, but the ball ends up going right into the net. The spectators are amazed as they jump out of their seats and celebrate Kaiser's spectacular goal. After that, we see Isagi, who has an immense aura around him with what looks like to be Kaiser's flower petals and wines. Anyway, Isagi felt the power of Kaiser's immense goal as he calls Kaiser a real superstar. While his eyes turn into darkness, however, that are typically a good sign in the Blue Lock series. Anyway, Kaiser, who's finally gotten his goal after getting run over by Isagi time and time again. He screams out of excitement and pure happiness, I think. After that, just like in the flashback, he takes his hand up towards the sky while he has tons of flower petals falling down on him. And this goal celebration is just amazing. It legit looks like he's aiming to grab hold of the sky or heavens. And I think that it's a clear sign that he isn't stopping anytime soon, as he gave Bastard Munchen their second goal of the match, and also the lead. The commentators screamed that it was a super golazo. After that, they say that despite struggling earlier in the match with a single strike and with the entire football world tuned into this match, Michael Kaiser shows why he's considered one of the best strikers of his generation. And then we see Kaiser, who makes his awesome goal celebration by lifting his hand towards the sky. Nanas can't believe his eyes and wonders what that shot's trajectory was. Karasu, who's also in shock, realizes that it was what Kaiser was going for the entire time. And then we also see Tokimitsu, who's honestly a bit afraid as he says that it's impossible and that there's no way to stop a shot like that. Isagi is looking at Kaiser and his eyes are filled with total darkness as he thinks that Kaiser is an emperor who's willing to sacrifice everything for his evolution. After that, we have Charles, who says damn and also calls him a show-off. Hiyori, on the other hand, goes straight to Kiora and asks him why he passed to Kaiser. Kiora is a bit taken off guard and says that there was no specific reason, looking back at Hiyori and saying that both of them were going to score regardless and that he could have easily passed to Isagi instead of Kaiser. However, Kiora admits that he tends to ally himself with the underdog, which shocks Hiyori as it was not what he expected to hear. Kiora continues and says that if the underdog wins, then it's all because of him. He starts to walk away while saying that with his borderline decisions, he can constantly shift the scales of power to whomever he chooses. Hiyori doesn't really know what to say and just calls him a weirdo while Isagi asks him to wait up. Kiora stops, and Isagi asks him if this means that he will side with Kaiser from now on. However, Kiora says that it's not the case at all, saying that this time it just so happened that his interests aligned with his, but next time, who knows? Starting to walk off once again while saying that until the last minute, not even the gods know who he chooses to side with, which, I'm not going to lie, sounds extremely cool. Isagi says that he will remember that, and Kiora just says alright, showing that he really doesn't give a shit about it. But with that, Isagi now understands Kyorijin's philosophy. He thinks to himself, and says that there's no doubt that Kiora played a massive role in Kaiser's goal, but it all started when Kaiser changed his approach, thinking back and saying that he abandoned his obsession with Isagi, and by passing to Reichi instead of Ness, he showed that he was willing to work with everyone else, even going as far as forcing Kunigami to work with him, and then, for the finishing touch, got Kiora to deliver the crucial final pass. By throwing away Kaiser's pride, and logically pursuing results. He propelled himself into his top performance, finally coming to the conclusion that without a doubt, Kaiser's 100% a holistic ego type. However, that kind of superficial analysis wasn't enough for Isagi to stop him, and he thinks that there's something that he still doesn't understand about Kaiser and his overall mindset. Thinking that to defeat Kaiser, he needs to gather more information. After that, we see Kaiser, who's walking, and Ness behind him. Ness stops him and calls out his name, and Kaiser looks at Ness. Ness is looking extremely happy, as he has stars in his eyes, as he says that Kaiser is incredible, saying that even though Ness couldn't deliver that final pass, he was still able to shoot it as he did during training. But not only that, as this shot was even greater than any of the shots he scored during training, and the way everything fell in place, it was almost as if God was on Kaiser's side. Kaiser just glanced at Ness with an uninterested look. But Ness continues as he says that his work ethic and perseverance helped turn an impossibility into a reality, saying that Kaiser truly is a player destined to become the best striker in the world. As he's saying, he looks so proud and happy for Kaiser, but after that, Kaiser speaks up. Kaiser thanks Ness, as it was thanks to him that Kaiser was able to come this far. Thanks to the freedom Ness's football gave him, he has become stronger since joining Bastard Munchen. These words mean so much to Ness that he starts to cry, but as he's crying, Kaiser says that he doesn't need Ness anymore. As Ness hears that, his expression changes drastically. Kaiser says that this match showed him what he needs to become even stronger, and says that he doesn't need the freedom that Ness brings anymore. Ness looks crushed as his tears keep on flowing down his face. Kaiser tells Ness not to follow him anymore, and to find a new king instead. While walking away, he says that he thrives best in discomfort, and just like that, he leaves Ness. Isagi was able to overhear their conversation, and hear what Kaiser said about discomfort. His pieces start to fly around again as he says freedom or restriction before saying that he gets it now, saying that depending on the environment, people's performance can change, regardless of whether we want it or not. He says that there are people like him who are freedom ego types, people who thrive in conditions where they are allowed the freedom to change their winning formulas. Conversely, there's the restrictive ego type. Those are people who thrive in conditions with clearly defined rules and objectives and faithfully accomplish those objectives to achieve success, or those who thrive in conditions where they rebel against those rules and objectives, saying that if they combine these two ego types with the individualistic and holistic ego types, then they can categorize each egoist into one of these four ego types. Here we have Isagi and Hiyori, who are both holistic and freedom ego types, while Shido and Bachira are individualistic freedom ego types. Kunigami is an individualistic and restrictive ego type, while Kaiser is a holistic and restrictive ego type. Isagi can't believe what he's just figured out, as he says that the quality of his analysis is increasing, and with this, he can understand more about each egoist. If he's then able to pinpoint Kaiser's weaknesses with this, then he will be able to, before he can finish his sentence. Kaiser calls out his name. Kaiser takes his hand through his hair and says that he's on fire right now, and that this is the most excited he's ever been, saying that thanks to Isagi, he's been reborn or metamorphized, and because of that, he says that the two of them should settle this once and for all. With this, they should determine who's the king of their generation, and see which one devours who. Isagi isn't one to back down, so he looks straight into Kaiser's eyes and tells him to bring it on. Both of them have an immense aura around them, and their eyes are literally burning with excitement. Isagi thinks that if he can crush Kaiser, then he will be able to grab the golden ticket that will lead him to become the world's best player, and after that, they both leave. However, we can see Rin, who was watching them closely. We get a close-up of his face as he just says kill after looking at Kaiser and Isagi. The text at the bottom says, overshadowed by three of his rivals, Itoshi Rin seethes with rage. As both teams wait for the game to restart, the aloof genius prepares to assert his dominance and announce himself as the world's best player. The next chapter is going to be called Pressure, and with the last panel being Rin and the bottom text being about him, I think that the next chapter will focus on him, and maybe about the pressure he's feeling right now, as it feels like every one of his rivals is going ahead of him while he hasn't done anything in this match yet. Alright, let's go over this chapter. First, let's talk about Kiora. I'm going to be real and say that I love how they have done his character. Until now, he was always a mystery, and still is to be honest, but I like how he isn't necessarily allying himself with anyone, just going with the flow and passing who he wants to. It makes the situations when he has to ball to be unexpected and mysterious. It makes him somewhat of a wild card because you never know what's going to happen. Now I feel like we have to go over Ness. I do feel extremely bad for Ness, but it was kind of a given after Kaiser started playing with the Blue Lock players, However, now I'm left wondering what Ness's next step will be. The most obvious play for him would be to try and go over to Isagi, but that would be kind of boring in my opinion. I want him to evolve on his own and find his own ego, just like Hiyori did. But I definitely see Ness working together with Isagi in the future, as it's either Isagi or Kaiser he can choose from, and Kaiser doesn't want him. It would be cool if he just went into savage mode and tried to score on his own, but that would never work for a player like Ness. What do you think will happen to Ness in the future? Please let me know in the comments. Lastly, this panel is just amazing. Finally, being able to see the competition between Kaiser and Isagi, now that both of them are at 100%, is amazing. And I think that the next few chapters are going to be wild, especially when we've gotten hints about Rin's potential starting to absolutely do something in this game instead of just backseating. However, I wonder how he will be able to get into the game right now. It's probably going to be some sort of chemical reaction with Charles or Loki if he enters. However, I still have big hopes for Nanase, as I'm confident that he will make some sort of big play in this game. After that, we see the whole Ubers spectating the match closely. Sendo scratches his head and says that it was an amazing goal and that it was expected by the Emperor, but even then, Sendo is determined not to lose to Kaiser. However, this feels more like a one-sided rivalry, if I'm honest. Anyway, after that, Ryu says that even Kaiser's pose after scoring the goal was flashy, and that it was one of the favorites to win the Super Flashy Protagonist Award, basically just Ryu being Ryu. We then see Nico, who says that now that Kaiser has stopped obsessing over Isagi, Bastard Munchin's gotten much more versatile on the attack. Aiku adds in by saying that they are a hell of a lot stronger than when they faced each other, and says that even though Bastard Munchin is evolving, behind him we have Lorenzo, who's almost drowning himself in popcorn, as he says that Kaiser's goal just now was probably worth around $500 million. Lorenzo's popcorn is going all over the floor, so Sendo and Ryu try to get him to stop. While those three are arguing, Baru is sitting calmly and wonders to himself what Isagi's next move will be. After that, we leave Uber's squad and instead go back to the match and to the Masters. Loki asks Noah if this is the evolution that he wants Kaiser to achieve. Noah says that it was, but asks if it's really okay for Loki to be interested in his players while his own players are falling apart. Loki has a smirk on himself as he says that it's fine if they lose, as he doesn't care about the result. However, he tells Noah to rest assured, as his prized impish trickster will undergo another evolution soon enough, which I'm dying to see, as Charles hasn't been able to do that much recently. After that, we see Shidu, who calls Kaiser's goal a fantastic explosion. He asks PXG what they are going to do after this incredible goal. However, Shidu is getting on Karasu's nerves a bit, as he tells him to shut up and calm down, and tells him that first, they have to peel that musclehead gorilla off Shidu. Once they do that, they should be able to create more chances. He turns to Zantetsu and asks if he's good to go, and Zantetsu, as dumb as he is, responds with full course, and it doesn't take long for Karasu to say that it's of course, and calls him a dimwit. On the other side, we have Tokimitsu, who is freaking out, saying that this is really bad, and that they are gonna lost at this rate over and over again. Nanase agrees and says that they need to switch things up before going to Rin and asking what the plan is. However, Rin is in a world of his own as he tells Nanase to shut up and that he is thinking. He thinks that Bastard's momentum just won't stop, and for Kaiser not to be outdone by Isagi's evolution, he evolved as well. As a result, those two brought a new style to Bastard Munchin. However, Rin knows one thing for certain, which is that their chemical reaction is still incomplete. He looks over at them and thinks that if he's going to destroy them, then it has to be right now. And with that, the game starts. Rin starts with the ball, but passes Nanase and tells him to follow him while calling him a bumpkin, who is an unsophisticated or socially awkward person from the countryside, and Nanase just agrees with it. With the ball at Nanase's feet, he is thinking about what to do. He thinks that the first thing he has to do is build up and make a link with Rin. However, something that Nanase didn't account for was that Isagi would be rushing towards him right as the match started. Nanase is caught off guard by this play and tries to defend the ball with his life, saying that he could have never predicted a frontal assault and calling it a demon press right from the start. However, it isn't only Isagi who is going on the attack, as out of nowhere Hiyori also comes by. He tells Nanase that he is too slow and that they will be taking it. With no other choice, Nanase can only pass the ball back to Rin. However, as he passes the ball and sees it going towards Rin, someone interferes. It's none other than the Emperor Kaiser, who comes in between the ball and takes it for himself. Nanase is left speechless as he can't figure out how the hell Kaiser got the read on that, and Rin isn't so pleased either as Kaiser starts to sprint up on their field. Rin starts to wonder if Isagi and Kaiser are actually working together. However, as he looks over to Isagi and Hiyori, he overhears them saying that Kaiser stole the ball and that they need to get it back. This clears things for Rin, as he knows that he was wrong and that the two of them aren't working together. Instead of saying that Isagi and Kaiser aren't even considering working together, compare them to a dragon and a tiger, as those two are battling each other for supremacy, and by clashing their top performances against each other, those two are dominating them to the point of being obliterated. Zantetsu says that there's no end to Bastard's attacks. Karasu screams at everyone to get back and to not worry about getting carded and just stop them, while Tokimitsu is just saying that it's bad over and over again, kind of starting to get on my nerves if I'm honest. After them, we have Rin, who is a bit behind. He thinks to himself that he came here to destroy Isagi, and that ever since he lost to him in the U20 match, he has devoted all his time and energy to getting ready for this match, so that he could finally defeat him. However, in this match, Rin realizes that he's nowhere near attaining that, saying that the state he was in during the U20 match, that level of concentration, and that level of bloodlust, if he can be able to get to the point where he can enter that berserker state at will, he knows for certain that he can destroy Isagi and even Sei. But still, at this rate, he's just going to lose to Isagi once again. He starts to wonder if it's because of Isagi's rate of growth is way faster than his, and says that right now he can't see a path to victory. While this is happening, we see that Zantetsu and Karasu were able to steal the ball from Kaiser. Zantetsu shot away the ball, which landed in the hands of Hiyori, who later passed it to Isagi. Rin sees this, and says that his feelings for revenge are getting crushed, and his obsession is somehow being obliterated by Isagi. The screen goes black and he says that everything is soon going to be destroyed. But then, something happens. Rin starts to transform, and a strange aura with darkness and eyes starts to go around him. Rin has finally entered the same state that he was in the U20 match, and has gotten close to Isagi, and says that this is it, saying that he needed the pressure that Isagi emanate to enter this state. And then Isagi looks at him, and says that he saw him coming from a mile away. And just like that, the duel which we've been most looking forward to is finally here. Isagi versus Rin is finally going to go down, and I've been waiting for this since all the way back in the U20 match. Isagi has the ball, and Rin tries to go for it, but just in time, Isagi drags the ball back. But Rin isn't stopping his attacks, as he once again goes for the ball. But Isagi handles this situation flawlessly, as he passes the ball to his left foot to keep it. We can clearly see in Rin's face that he's beginning to get furious because of this. Rin tries to take his hand and get Isagi off balance, but Isagi isn't having any of it as he just slaps away Rin's hand. However, there's more trouble coming Isagi's way, as behind him, the left wing of PXG Nanase Nijiro comes to help Rin. Isagi is able to quickly see this, and looks for options that he can use. Just then, he spots Corona running on his right side and makes a smooth pass to him. Corona gets the ball and tells Isagi to do a 1-2 with him, so Isagi escapes from Nanase and Rin and runs up while they are caught off guard by Corona. After Isagi is free, Corona passes Isagi, and Isagi gets the ball flawlessly, which we can clearly see really upset both Rin and Nanase. As Isagi has the ball, he says bye-bye to Rin and thinks to himself that he's now broken through completely and that he has a complete grasp of Rin's movements, further explaining that right now the whole field revolves around Isagi, saying that since Kunigami is keeping Shido in check, the Karasu, Zantetsu, and Shido combo is pretty much useless, and even though Rin remains a dangerous threat, Isagi is good if he can bypass him and his two lackeys, like he just did now, talking about Nanase and Tokimitsu. But that's not all, because as long as he keeps an eye out for Charles and his unpredictable movements, he can destroy PXG's attacks. However, this also means that the only player who even has a chance of scoring a goal right now is none other than Kaiser, who is seen running behind Isagi. Isagi thinks that even though it's highly unlikely that he can recreate that super goal, since he's constantly positioning himself in a way that he can score at any moment, to deal with Isagi and Kaiser simultaneously, their opponent has no choice, and if they go all in to stop Isagi, then Kaiser will score. Conversely, if they go all in to stop Kaiser, Isagi will be the one to score, concluding that right now Bastard Munchin is burning the brightest and evolving the strongest, which we can clearly see as both Kaiser and Isagi are fully immersed in this game right now. After that, we switch over to Rin, who says that it's not over yet, and calls Isagi an asshole while almost being fully immersed by his rage and darkness aura, not to mention how mad he looks. Rin thinks that he doesn't deny that he became stronger playing in the Neo-Egoist League, but that's only from a technique standpoint. What he truly was lacking, and what he desperately needed, was the intense mental pressure, which for him is a player that brings him torment and suffering. As he says, we see his aura getting bigger and bigger, almost covering all of Rin, as well as two silhouettes of Sei and Isagi behind him. Continuing with what he said before, and saying that he needed someone stronger than everybody, and one who rightly stands in his way, which he calls the ultimate egoist. Once again, his aura is just getting more and more intense, as he says that the urge to destroy that sort of egoist is the trigger to enter this state. And lastly, while almost being consumed by total rage and darkness, he says that this is it. This is the feeling he's been looking for. After that, we once again switch over to Isagi, who has puzzle pieces flying around him like crazy, as he says that this is his game and his only, saying that if he can't succeed in this situation, and if he can't finish first, then all of this hard work would have been for nothing. He tells himself to think, and says that there's got to be a way to win, while simultaneously shutting down Kaiser, saying that for the top performance that Kaiser is currently seeking, he has to find an action that destroys it, which is just what Isagi has found as he finally makes his move. Isagi decided to move towards Kaiser, which caught everyone off guard. Kaiser can't believe his eyes and is extremely confused. The same could be said for Karasu, Hiyori, and Nanase, who are just watching this go down. Isagi thinks that since Kaiser loves playing in Isagi's shadow so much and taking advantage of any blind spots that may occur due to Isagi's presence, he's now instead made a run that forces Kaiser into the spotlight. And we can see on Kaiser's face that this was a smart move by Isagi, as Kaiser is furious at Isagi. After that, Isagi, Hiyori, and Corona start trading passes, while Isagi admits that, from an individual skills standpoint, Kaiser outclasses him, but what he has over Kaiser is the support he gets from Corona and Hiyori. Since Kaiser is all alone inside this cage Isagi created, he is now powerless. They trade glances for a moment, as Isagi asks Kaiser to show him the answer Kaiser is able to create from his restrictive environment. And just then, Kaiser makes his move, as instead of watching, he runs up on the field. However, this was exactly what Isagi wanted, as he says bingo, and says that he fell for it, you shitty clown. Explaining that since Kaiser made the first move, the defense has no choice but to deal with him first, and that Isagi's aim is the run he will make within Kaiser's shadow, which is just what he did now, as he did an opposite run that kickstarts his freedom, as Isagi has broken through everyone and is free. Corona from the side tells Isagi to be ready as he will pass the pass now. However, that's not exactly what happens, as instead of Corona passing the ball, he instead gets a one-way ticket right down to the ground as Rin, fully immersed in rage, comes in and pushes him off balance, making him fall to the floor, saying that he figured that he would do that, and calls Corona Isagi's pigtailed sea anemone, which is actually a bit funny. Anyway, Isagi is extremely shocked by this, as he didn't expect Rin to be there. Rin gets the ball, and Isagi realizes that Kaiser wasn't the only one who evolved when he's feeding off the restriction Isagi creates. We see Rin, who looks furious and even has his tongue out, which we know from the U20 match that he only does when he's extremely locked in the game, and then it begins the battle between Isagi, Rin, and Kaiser, even though I feel like it will be more directed between Isagi and Rin. We get right into the chapter where we see a shocked Noah and Loki, who's looking at the monster like Rin, who currently has the ball, as well as a dark aura around him. Not to mention that he has his tongue out, meaning that he's extremely concentrated. Raichi is furious and asks how Rin didn't get a foul for pushing over Corona in the last chapter. However, Isagi thinks that Rin touched the ball first, so there will be no foul. He then says that Rin is bringing out his prey's best and destroying it, just like he did in the U20 match. With this, Isagi knows that Itoshi Rin is about to go all out now. We can see in Rin's eyes that he's extremely determined, and just then he starts rushing over to Raichi. Raichi is a bit taken aback and says shit before taking out his arm and trying to block Rin. However, Rin just slaps Raichi's arm to the side and instead takes his arm on Raichi's stomach to push him away. However, another bastard Munchin player has been lurking in the shadows, and it's none other than Kiora Jin, who tries to sneak up on Rin and take the ball. But Rin somehow predicted it, so he makes the ball float and avoids Kiora. With the ball now in the air, he turns around and passes it. Nanas gets the pass and traps it amazingly. After that, Rin starts to sprint all that he can up on the field. He breaks free from Raichi, and because of that, Nanas passes back the ball to Rin. But just then, another challenger comes in Rin's way. This time it's the ultra-sadist Hiyori. However, it doesn't take long for Rin to absolutely demolish Hiyori, as he actually does a rainbow flick to get past Hiyori. And this just looks so goddamn cool, I can't even lie. We can clearly see on Rin's body that his aura is beginning to become clearer the longer he plays. Hiyori looks back in shock after getting the rainbow flicked and says that Rin is extremely good and is wondering if his concentration has increased. After that, we see Isagi, who is on Rin's left side, following Rin's steps closely. He thinks that Rin doesn't stop the movement of the ball or himself. saying that he's doing a counter that makes the most of his individual skills and passing, calling it efficient breakwork, which we can clearly see annoys Isagi. However, this makes Isagi understand that Rin was always aware of his movements. With this, Isagi thinks that the more the field becomes centered on him, the easier it becomes to read the overall movements tied to it, which means that he is more restriction-oriented to show his abilities in this situation, where they are limited and tied down to what he can do. Saying that unlike Kaiser, who let go of his obsession with Isagi, Rin fixes on Isagi more to express himself better, which makes him a self-type egoist, and with this newfound knowledge, Isagi says that he's starting to understand Rin's mental structure and also the equation of his mind. And with his puzzle pieces flying around him like crazy, he starts to wonder how he can twist Itoshi Rin into his will. If that wasn't bad enough, then he's also getting closer to the feeling that time during the U20 game, which we can clearly see as his aura has beginning to take an even larger form around Rin. Isagi thinks back to the U20 game and thinks about Rin's flow mode and says that the thrill of exposing the enemy's highest form and crushing and trampling on it is what Rin likes the most. Rin has been able to get himself to the backline of Bastard Munchin, and before him are two defenders who probably won't do anything. However, before we see Rin manhandle them, Isagi wonders how he is going to stop him, as he says that this situation is different from that time at the U20 match, saying that at that time Sei was there, so he became a presence that could barely stop Rin, but now, no one can suppress Rin when he's switched on. We see Rin get behind one of the defenders without even dropping a sweat. After that, he turns to the other one and does the same thing to him, leaving them completely destroyed. And this leaves Isagi with no choice but to be the one to take Sei's place, now that he isn't here. However, as his pieces are floating like crazy, he wonders if he really has the power to do it. But then he realizes that it isn't about whether he can or not, and that he has to do it. The two of them make eye contact with each other, and we can see that both of their eyes are glowing with a burning desire to beat each other. Isagi asks Rin to bring it on, to give Isagi his best form before saying that the number one is none other than Isagi, as he slams his body into Rin's, making them side by side fight for the ball. I will talk about this panel more afterward, but please just look at this panel. It's amazing. I love how Isagi has his puzzle pieces flying around him on his side while Rin has his darkness and rage aura around him. However, we quickly leave that and instead go right into a flashback. Where do we see Rin playing with some toys? He has a dragon and a superhero in his hand, and as he plays, he breaks the superhero with the dragon. He says random words as he has drool running down his face. However, to his rescue, Sei comes and wipes it away. He puts his hand on Rin's head and asks if it's that much fun, as Rin drools when he's having fun and is concentrating, and Rin just says that it is. Sei notices the broken superhero on the floor, which makes Rin get a guilty expression on his face. Sei takes up one of the broken pieces and says that toys aren't like humans and that they don't bleed, but once they break, they won't heal. Rin says that he knows and apologizes. He looks at the broken toy and asks if he will get scolded again by mom and dad, wondering if he will once again cause trouble for them. To try and lift Rin's gloomy mood, Sei asks Rin if he wants to go grab some ice cream, which you can't refuse. As they have the ice cream, Sei asks if Rin got it, probably referring to the prize on the ice cream. Rin, with a sad face, says that he didn't, but Sei tells him not to worry about it, and that until the day he dies, his older brother will always be by Rin's side. After that, we get back in the game and see that both Rin and Isagi are out of balance just in front of the ball. But suddenly, Rin's darkness and rage just vanish after the flashback, and he's back to his regular expression. So in the last chapter, we left off with Rin and Sei going out and eating some ice cream, and as we get into this chapter, we see them coming home. Sei and Rin enter the door, and Rin yawns as both of them say that they are home. Right as they enter, their mom and dad are standing right in the doorway. With an angry and irritated voice, their mother yells Rin's name. She asks if he broke another toy again, and asks how many times it has been now. Rin, who is struggling to come up with anything, just says random words before he apologizes. However, just as he is doing so, Sei confesses that it was actually him who did it, even though it was Rin. Their parents are surprised by this, and even Rin isn't too sure what is going on. Their mom gets on the floor and takes her hands around Sei's face as she asks if it really is him. Sei explains that he got annoyed and accidentally did it. After that, their father asks Sei to come with him for a bit, and he follows along while looking back at Rin, and both of them stick their tongues out to each other. After that, we get into an intense scene where we can see a dinosaur starting to destroy and burn up an entire city. The citizens say that they can't take it anymore and that it's the end of the world, but suddenly someone sees something in the distance. They look over and see Evelyn, who is still trying to get up. They are all amazed by this and say that it's been over 3 minutes and that there shouldn't be any power left for it to turn into a giant. However, don't be so sure. As we see one of Evelyn's eyes start to light up, he then gets up on his feet once again and starts to emanate some sort of light ability. The citizens don't understand what is going on, and someone even says that he is able to feel his life energy being sucked out of him. They realize that Evelyn is about to undergo his final evolution, and he asks everyone in the world to share their lifespan with him, which they do. Even the elderly can't be stopped. We see that the energy from everyone is starting to form some sort of light ball attack in Evelyn's hand, and it doesn't take long before it fires off an incredible lightning blast as he says that life is beauty-ho. Now, I'm not sure whether this is a typo or if it's supposed to say beauty-ho, but I will continue saying beauty-ho as it's what it says. Anyway, the light beam hits the dinosaur right in its stomach, making it a critical hit. After that, we go back to the regular blue lock and see some of Rin's classmates doing the Evelyn final attack in the classroom. Rin is watching them as he plays Jenga and hears them saying that Evelyn is so cool and even asks their sensei to do the final boss attack. Their sensei scratches their heads and says that recent special effects hero shows are really well made, even saying that she cried again yesterday after watching all the episodes, and she even begins to cry just thinking about it. The kids are getting annoyed and ask her to just do the attack already, but she continues going over how sad the last episode was. Rin is watching this closely. However, suddenly his friends call his name and say that it's his turn to go. Rin looks back at the Jenga tower, but instead of placing a block, he instead falls on top of the tower, which makes his friends question what he is doing. After that, we went outside and saw some birds eating seeds on the ground. However, suddenly, superhero Rin comes attacking as he jumps down from a playground thing and goes for the birds. However, they quickly evade him as they see him going for them, and after that, they fly away, leaving Rin on the ground with a bleeding nose. After that, the school day is over and Rin is home watching TV. He sees a tiger and what looks like a deer who's fighting for its life. However, the tiger is faster than the deer, so he catches up, and as he's gotten hold of the deer, the tiger starts to bite on its neck. I can't really make out Rin's expression for this because at first glance he looks shocked, but at second glance I feel like he looks fascinated, so I can't really say, but let's go with him being shocked. After that, we go over to Rin's parents who are sitting in the kitchen. Their mom says that today again, Rin caused trouble at the kindergarten, saying that he jumped off a high place by himself and came home injured again, saying that lately Sei seems to be acting strange because of Rin, and their mother starts to wonder if she is a good enough mother. Their father tries to comfort the mother and says that it's fine, explaining that it's just a boy's impulsive nature and that he is sure that Rin will calm down as he gets older. As he says that, we see Rin, who's been standing quietly alongside the door and listening into their conversation. As he's listening, Sei comes down the stairs and asks if Rin wants some ice cream. Rin shakes his head and says that he doesn't. After that, we see a small panel of the superhero toy that Rin broke before, but now it has tape around it that is holding it together. Rin, who's lying on the bed, asks if Sei thinks that Rin is weird. Sei is surprised by this question and says that he is his little brother after all. After that, Rin asks if Sei thinks that it's a bother for everyone if Rin is around, and Sei just asks what that's supposed to mean. As he's stretching, he says that people often call him weird or annoying as well, asking Rin if he's unhappy that Sei is just as weird as he is. However, Rin says that if he's the same as Sei is, then it's okay if he's weird, and then Rin puts on Evelyn on the TV. Sei, who is doing keep-ups up with the ball, asks if Rin is once again watching that, and says that all of his friends are also into it, and that they are saying stuff like, Evelyn is so cool as well as he is fighting to protect the earth, calling it all childish. Rin, who's still closely watching the TV, says that he, instead of liking Evelyn, is a fan of the final monster boss, asking Sei to take a look at it, and explains that he is trying to beat someone who is better than himself is, explaining that even though it's at a disadvantage, it's still fighting for its life, as we see as the final monster boss runs through the light beam and crushes Evelyn's head with his teeth, almost like what the tiger did to the deer earlier. Rin continues and says that even if its body is riddled with holes, or if it has to go as far as to self-destruct, it still fights to defeat the hero and calls it super cool, as he sees that the two of them self-destructs. Sei is watching Rin in shock, as Rin says that to him, even if he gets hurt and beaten, one day he wants to fight someone amazing, destroy him, and then die just like the final monster did. Rin's eyes are big as he's watching the TV while Sei still looks in shock. We also see that Rin starts to drool again as we get back in the game, and he says that his ego isn't just a destruction impulse, but instead, a destruction at the cost of life, looking like a maniac with his dead and dark eyes while having his tongue out and saying that this is his true nature. However, just then, Kaiser comes from his side and screams that it's fucking rude of Rin, calling him a foul-mouthed, tongue-wagging monk. And just then, the matchup between Kaiser and Rin starts with both of them looking more fired up than ever before. We start with a panel with a bunch of sports players, and the text says that when humans concentrate, they unconsciously open their mouths or stick out their tongues. It's often seen in childhood, but it's also said that top athletes do this in sports to release themselves from excessive tension and relax their bodies, which is exactly what Rin is doing. After that, we see Loki, who looks at Rin and says that, "Still, you're sticking your tongue out too much and calling Itoshi Rin quite wild." We also see Noah, who says that this is the true nature of Blue Lock's number 1. After that, we see Isagi on the floor, while Rin and Kaiser are beginning their matchup against each other. Their faces are filled with determination, as well as a ton of bloodlust. Rin tries to trick Kaiser away by doing some feints with the ball, but Kaiser instead tries to take his hand on Rin's shoulder. Still, it doesn't take long before Rin completely slaps Kaiser's hand, and that just looks incredible. Isagi finally realizes that he can't be chilling on the ground and gets up and compliments Kaiser's stalling before calling him a clown. Kaiser is looking furious as he tells Isagi not to interfere. He says that it's a duel between him and this fucking tongue, which was actually pretty funny. But Isagi just says that he doesn't care and that he will crush Rin. We get a close-up of Rin's eyes as he says that he now understands the psychology that leads him to the flow state. He says that it's the desire to bring out the best in his enemies and destroy them. He calls it an impulse that comes from his deep-seated desire to risk his life to destroy an amazing person. This means that Rin's flow is extremely similar to Sei's, but compared to Sei, who wants to destroy players beautifully, Rin wants to shame and embarrass them by bringing out their best. He also thinks back to the U20 game, and says that he was able to raise his performance to such a level in the U20 match because he threw everything at the strongest existence, which of course was Itoshi Sai at that moment. But now, in the Neo-Egoist League, before him is the guy he wants to kill, which is of course Isagi, as well as a nuisance who's standing in his way, which is Kaiser. Rin takes a step on the ground and says that the conditions are set. With his rage and dark aura, which we haven't seen in a while, decides to peek out as Rin rushes towards the two of them and says that all that's left for him is to have the courage to burn to death in this moment. He says that as we get closer to his eye, which is getting swollen by the darkness, as Rin is rushing towards them, Kaiser looks intensely at him and says that he's not going to fall for it. While Isagi charges in without even thinking twice about it, Rin notices this and is surprised by the fact that Kaiser decided not to charge him.
Thanks for watching our video. We will show you the rest in our next video.